welcome to another edition of Mortgage Talks. I'm your host, Adam Hires. Remember to download your free business transformation playbook to grow your business. Not just grow it, but explode your business today. So go to hirescoaching.com, download your free business transformation playbook today. Don't wait. All right. We have a special, amazing, awesome guest on the show today. I tell you, I am extremely blessed to be working with this gentleman. I've seen him grow exponentially over the last about year, and I tell you what, really great guy. You're going to get a lot of great content out of what he's saying. I feel like it's going to resonate with you in what points of the business you are at currently, or where you're trying to go. He's going to talk about his journey of what he's been able to accomplish and what he's trying to accomplish in the future. So we're very, very excited about this guest. Dante, introduce yourself, brother.
Well, I'm Dante Zompetti. I'm a loan officer here at Movement Mortgage. I've been here a little bit over a year and a half now. Just rocking and rolling.
Yeah, rocking and rolling. I tell you what, Dante has a great story. So I met Dante because Dante reached out to me with, it had nothing to do with my coaching. He reached out to me and said, "Man, you're crushing it." I think he keeps referring to me. He kept referring to me as and I'm trying to remember the runner, the 4-minute mile.
Roger Bannister.
Roger Bannister.
Yeah.
Roger Bannister.
When you came back to the company and I started seeing your numbers, I was just like, what is happening? The Midwest, we weren't supposed to be putting up those kind of numbers. And so I was kind of sitting there in my laurels, thinking, okay, whatever. Well, when you came in and just busted down the doors in 2-3 months, I had to give you a call.
Yeah. I give Dante tons of credit because he just reached out and was like, "Hey, I want to come down and pick your brain." And I was like, "Well, come on." I mean, that was very impressive. So he drove, I think it was like, what are you, three hours away from me?
Yeah, three and a half. Yeah.
About 3.5 hours away. And he's in Ohio, I'm in Kentucky. And he just drove down, and I was very impressed. He came prepared, and he was asking me questions. He was writing notes, and I was like, this guy is great. And so I reached out to him, and I don't ever do this. Like, I started coaching Dante for free. I was like, "Hey, listen, brother," because I don't think you could talk about this, but you weren't in a point in your business where you're like, "Man, I can't invest." But I was so thoroughly impressed by you coming down and just, writing the notes, taking upon yourself to try to learn and grow. I was like, this guy has what it takes. He just needs some guidance to blow him up, and you've absolutely blown it up. So talk about your journey. I'd love to hear, the audience would love to hear about your journey, and you could start even back from, before you're in mortgages, all that. Just share us your story and what led you all the way up until today to producing like you do.
Yeah, I mean, so like I said, I've only been at the current company for a little over a year and a half, and in the industry, I've only been in for 2 years, a little over, something like that. I've been doing sales since I was like 18 years old, and all kinds of like network marketing, different sales jobs, just all kinds of stuff. And throughout my 20s, I got really disenfranchised because I really just I tried to learn and grow and always pick up what everybody was laying out there. And in some of the network marketing companies, they'd have events every month, every couple months, and I would go, I would eat it up. I remember really like when I was 19 or 20 years old, I had a bunch of guys. There was a men's leadership up in Michigan, and I put a car full of guys, and I just said, let's drive 4 or 5 hours to hear these guys that had the success in life that I wanted, and I wanted to hear them talk. And I mean, that still is one of the most defining moments in my early 20s. But it's interesting because throughout my 20s, I didn't realize it until actually I was this weekend. We were moving boxes in my house, and I found this box of notes. And it's just everything I've like had since I was 20, right? Just every little notepad and whatnot. So I was going through it. We were watching a movie last night, and I was just kind of going through it, and it was incredible to me. I didn't really, you could see the transformation of how much more negative I got as I got through my 20s, because I just got defeated, and I wasn't, the millionaire at 20 that I thought I would be, and I wasn't pulling in 6-7 figures like I thought I would be, and you could see in the verbiage that I used when describing myself. Now looking back, I didn't realize it at the time, but so anyhow, I turned 30 and pretty much had a midlife crisis at 30. I was a bank, personal banker at one of the Midwest, at Fifth Third. I don't know if it really matters, but yeah, I was over there. And I had a guy come in, a mortgage guy, just sharp. He was younger than me, doing great things. I don't know if some of you people, some of your listeners, ever had that experience where the people in the banks, when you're in the bank side of lending, people always think the tellers and everything think the mortgage guys just don't do anything because they roll in at 10 o'clock and they leave by 2. And and in his case, he was doing a lot of stuff. He just didn't have any reason to be at the bank, right?
Right.
Our industry is a lot different. So anyhow, I saw this guy, really connected with him. We talked. He left there and went to a different bank as a VP there, and he was going to be starting recruiting and doing that kind of a position at that bank. And I went with him. Literally, it was like the weekend of my birthday, my 30th birthday. So I truly call it my midlife crisis. And I went to that bank, and I was there for 6-7 months, and it was a pain. Barely, thank goodness they gave me a little bit of a base, because I wouldn't have pulled out much of anything. But I started growing. It was that first step. For me, it was that first step back into a foray. I had quit all my network marketing. I'd been trading crypto at the time, not successfully. And, I just had so many different things going on that I just pushed all that aside, and I focused on the mortgage industry. And, I still kind of had, you can kind of tell back in the time too, I still had a lot of those doubts, but I just put my head down and started really focusing, and this is the one thing I'm going to do. And I got a call. Him and my former boss and I were supposed to come to the new company together and take on a couple, what are they called? Advertising agreements with a couple real estate companies here. And a couple things happened where he didn't end up coming, and it just was me. So now I'm in the Midwest. Effectively, I don't really have any boss other than the regional guy who's in charge of 400 loan officers, and to give him credit, anytime I called, he'd always answer. He was always there for me. But I pretty much was just out on a raft in Ohio. There was one other loan officer, and he wasn't doing much either. And it was just, but at the same time, that first year, first 10 months, I was able to put 40 some loans together, and it was tough, but I could start to see, I talked about my first couple months at the bank, got me into the industry, got me learning a lot. Obviously I was just diving in, learning all kinds of things. The next 6-7 months, the next 10 months or so after that, I was at this company, and I started doing decent. I had one of the biggest years in sales that I'd had, I think, ever. I don't know. I'd have to go back and look, but it might have been the largest amount of income I had made to date. And I had a little bit more expansion, and I had just enough. And so at the beginning of this year, I started getting hired on my first assistant, and just started growing just so much more, and just a couple more loans. And that's when I think that was March or something of this year, February, sometime around then, I reached out to you, and it wasn't 30 days later, I had tripled my business. And so this year, and this was kind of even before really COVID and all of the, craziness of everything going on of COVID. But in that time, I lost my first assistant, hired another one, and we could talk about where I want to go here in the future. But that was it's been one of the hardest things I've ever done, and
Mm-hmm.
obviously been one of the most rewarding
Mm-hmm.
as well. So it's been an interesting journey, but it's very interesting. It's very cool because even back in my early 20s, 18, 19 years old, I remember hearing guys talk about some of these success clues and
Mm-hmm.
some of the things we talk about, maybe in different terms. Like one of my favorite, limited risk, limited income.
Mm-hmm.
Like that kind of stuff just stuck with me, and so a lot of the stuff that I had learned over these years really culminated this year and just blew up in a way that had I not had all that background, it would have been a lot harder.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard. There's no doubt that there were nights where my wife would tell you, like, I was just laying in the bed thinking, gosh, I wish I had a plan B. you know, but I burned all the bridges, and I was successful doing it, I guess. So
Yeah, you've been real successful. I mean, to tell everybody, you went from the first quarter averaging what 3-4 loans a month
yeah,
to
three
now
loans
you're
average for the first quarter,
what you're
and
averaging now.
the last two quarters I'll average, I think, 16, 15, something like that.
Yeah,
In
that's
the last two.
incredible. Yeah, you're looking
And
at almost
fourth quarter is
500%.
going to be what's that?
Almost 500%. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Fourth quarter is going to be the same way too. I mean, we already have that, going for the fourth quarter. So, it's not stopping too. A lot of this is purchase business. This is
Mm-hmm.
not the refi that we all know will come and go.
Mm-hmm.
But it's here to stay.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I look back on that journey, especially this first couple months. Like I was hammering. I mean, I did events at the bank. I did anything and everything I could do. Everything. If you're a loan officer and you're listening to this, you've heard anything. You've heard Popeyes. You've heard like all of them. I've tried and I've gone through, and maybe I picked up a realtor open houses. That's still one of my favorite things to do. Not really with COVID; it's a little bit harder, but there's nothing better. I mean, so few loan officers do all the things that we know. All the loaners, everybody's heard of going and doing open houses,
Mm-hmm.
but so few people actually do it. Every single time I've gone out there, oh, you were the first person to do this. Like, just
Mm-hmm.
the people who do the things that they should be doing, you can get the success just by going out there long enough and doing the right things.
Mm-hmm.
That said, I mean, obviously COVID's changed a lot of the things. Like the open houses are totally different, but
Yep.
it doesn't mean that there aren't plenty of other things out there to go do to get to earn business. One of the biggest things for me is this industry really opened up my eyes. Like I said, I've been so burned in my 20s. It's the dreaming is back. The world building, the toys and the things that I thought about it. In my early 20s are back, and I'm like talking to my wife about getting her a horse and all these type of things that we just never we kind of, even though I never would have told you. And here's another thing too, is like I never would have told somebody like that was asking me, oh yeah, I don't really dream anymore. I would have said all the time, like, oh yeah, I'm still wanting these things.
Yeah.
But it was clear, like when I was reading my notes, it was clear in the actions. I didn't believe it was going to happen.
Right.
And like you and I've talked quite a few times, like even in mortgages, it took me steps to get to the place where I believe now. Like, I mean, next year will be insane at the volume I'll be able to produce.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, Dante. So to tell the listener for me to tell the listeners out there. So Dante, man, I love coaching Dante. Love helping Dante because Dante's genuine. You can probably hear that in his voice, and what he's talking about. And Dante, I mean, this is. I hope this is hitting home with people because, there's so many out there that came into mortgage industry and like, well, I'm going to set the world on fire. I'm going to do all this. And then all of a sudden stuff started happening. And, oh man, I'm just going to go 3 or 5 loans a month. And, I can't do more than that, et cetera, and all the stuff we tell ourselves. And Dante, over time started telling himself he just can't really do that. And he had all these old messages. And one of the things is like, for you out there, anytime I'm trying to talk about coaching somebody or anything else, I always say it's tools and tactics are a little bit of what is going to help. I'm going to be able to help somebody on, or coach anybody. Coach is going to be able to help somebody on. The true lasting change happens when you transform your habits and your thought processes and your vision and your all those mindset shifts that says, hey, I'm a top producer. I am this. This is who I am. And so we tell ourselves all of a sudden we can't do all this, and it starts just hammering home. And then once little, shifts happen, but we have problems, then all of a sudden we just give up. We're defeated again. And so the vision and the why and all that stuff have to be so strong, and the belief in yourself, because Dante here grew really rapidly, and then it's like, okay, now it's like, how do we get the next stage? Or can we hire somebody else? And it's like, oh man, what if I go back? What if I do this? Oh, what if I do that? Right? So we tell ourselves these messages because, Dante had an old message of still like, I don't know if I'm, if I'm a product of the market. And I'm like, we had this conversation, Dante, and it was great because I was like, well, how many refinances do you do? It's like, well, I do like two a month. It's like, well, cool. That's like you can pick up 2 purchase deals, but the purchase business in his area is not up. It's just him, his activity, what he's doing to become better. So he has a sustainable and a scalable business, and he can do that. So shifting that mindset and saying, wait a second, I am a top producer. It's in my lifeblood now because I've done it for months after month after month, and I can scale. And again, having a vision to say, hey, I can do much more. I can grow my business. I can push in again and invest in my business because I know it's going to be there. And that's the great transformation that I see Dante having is another leap. And so it's not the story's not all written with 15 and 17 loans a month. I mean, the sky's the limit. And now I love that he's saying, hey, listen, I dreamed I could be a millionaire. And now it's like the visions are really coming back like this actually can happen, and I could do that. And the story I love, and if you don't mind me sharing about about your wife, do you mind me sharing about what you said about your wife the other day? Not even bad. So he's talking about his wife. So this is a great story. This is great. So Dante never thought about it like this because when Dante started doing well, started having some money flow in, his wife's like basically like, save the money, save money, save money, save money. Because she was like, I don't know if we're going to have this happen again, right? This maybe an aberration, right? And then like now 6 and 7 months in where he just continues to produce these big numbers. She's like, hey, let's get this. And he's like, man, slow down. I'm like, this is such a beautiful thing because now your wife is bought in and she's like, hey, my man is a top producer. He's just going to keep bankrolling. He's going to keep on growing. And Dante never really made that connection, but I was like, think about how much she believes in her man that he's going to continue doing that. And that was such a beautiful thing to listen to and hear come from our discussion, because not only are you believing, your wife is now believing, not that she didn't believe in you before, but obviously we're human. We have doubts of like, oh, is it going to continue? And now she's like, this is who I am. And so I feel like out of that conversation, maybe now you got that catapult you to say, hey, she believes in me. I believe in me.
Yeah.
Now, what more can I do?
I mean, that's like when her and I first met, and I had kind of introduced her into the network marketing mindset and some of those things. And this isn't a hit on anybody in that industry. I mean, there's some great people there. That's where I learned. Like, I would recommend everybody to do it at least for a portion of their life. But there also is a piece where you got to understand, your action is not lining up with what you're hearing, then eventually that battle of the mind becomes obvious to yourself, and maybe not to yourself, but obvious to others who are looking at you. And like that's what you talked about. Because I remember some of my early conversations with my now wife, and she believed in it, but she's like, all right, well, okay, you believe in it, and
I believe
obviously
you believe
over
it.
the years, exactly. And over the years, then she's like, clearly my actions weren't lining up with what I was saying. I was and so now, like you said, I mean, there's all kind, talking, like I said, talking about the horse, we probably fully furnished our whole house. I mean, it's just,
yeah,
all kinds of fun things going on. And that's, I never correlated it. Yeah, and even if, like, still today, I mean, there's still plenty of battles of mind moments, when realtor calls or talking to a client about something that comes up that wasn't there before. There's still, I mean, you and I still constantly talk about getting my time zones down and getting my green time in there, and like, there's still so much more to learn. But I think in my mind, one of the notes that I remember reading, and it's so key, is that little steps, and I think you tell it, actually, you all the time, the quote from Martin Luther King, that see the first step. I mean, there's so much truth to that for me, because we had this conversation 6 months ago, I would have said, oh, it'd be really cool to, do 7-8 loans and make 5 figures a month or something. And now that's like, the mindset's just completely different. And even when I'm having some of those issues, like I said, like with realtor calls or whatnot, that mindset set change didn't necessarily come from anything other than my action. And as the action got better, mindset started changing more and more, to the point where now and I still have so much more to grow, but I remember what it felt like when I first saw something that opened my eyes back when I was 18, and I have that same kind of feeling now. And if you're out there and you're thinking, especially if you've been in the industry for a couple of years, or you're even seeing a bunch of people out there right now that are just putting in big numbers because of all this refinance stuff, and you're not maybe doing that same thing, like, we all have a different journey, and so it's so key in my mind, like, focus on what your next step is, see the top and look for it, but get that next step down. And that's what I definitely had to do. And that's where, when you came on board and I went down and met with you, I just had gotten my first assistant. You were a little bit further ahead. One of the things that you did for me personally, I could see other people in our industry putting up 100 million, 200 million, and that's all fine and dandy. But when you came to Movement, and I saw you, like, there was no excuses then. You came in, and that's one of the biggest things that I think really happened for me with the breakthrough was, I'm not putting you down in any way, but when I say this, like, he's no better than me. Like, like, I saw somebody that I related to, and maybe that's the best way to put it. I related to you so much in the sense that I just looked at him like, I mean, what's the difference here? Like, he's a couple years down the line further than me, versus someone where, and we've had this conversation too, somebody maybe on the coast, or somebody that's just got a different business profile. Like, you were in the Midwest in a town that is roughly the same size as my town. So it's not like the loan volume was any different. It's not like there were so many things, that everything I could try to act like, oh yeah, well, I can discount all his success because of X, Y, Z. You wiped it away for me. And that, I think, probably more than anything, was a big key difference when I changed. Was, I mean, I don't have an excuse anymore. It's either put up or shut up. And it's fine if you just want to put, like, there is nothing wrong with doing 3 to 5 loans a month. And I mean, our industry is amazing that you can have a very nice lifestyle and do that. That just wasn't what, like, I've always wanted more. And I don't know.
No, that's great. I love it, and you're absolutely right. There's nothing wrong with doing 3 or 5 loans a month if that's what you want to do. It's kind of like Gary Vee. He'll like blast people, and or blast a thought process, and somebody come back at him like, well, if I'm happy, then was it? He's like, well, I'm not talking to you, right? Like, right? Like, I'm not talking to you. So if this podcast and you're doing 3 to 5 loans a month, and that's what you want to do, and you're living your best life, and that's exactly where you want to be, congratulations, right? Only thing I would admonish you to say is, like, you may want to try to grow just a slight bit past it, so that even in the tough times you can still do 3 to 5 loans a month. But other than that, really, you may be okay with that. But this podcast for people trying to grow, really mindset, their numbers, reduce their hours, be better, just be better, a better version of themselves. And you're continuing to do that and continue to push that. And I love where you're saying, hey, I got rid of the excuses. And that was my thing. I got rid of the excuses. And you're absolutely right. People want to make excuses all the time. It's like, Well, they have a team. It's like, well, if then why don't you have one, right? Oh,
Yeah.
well, I have this. It's like, well, why don't you do that then? Like that somehow discounts what somebody does. It's like, well, I mean, Tony Robbins has like I don't know, 3,000, 5,000 people work for him. I don't know how many he has worked for him. Well, guess what? He makes a ton of money. Well, if I had that many people, no, you wouldn't. Okay, you got to grow that level. You have to push. You have to push the comfort zones, and you're pushing those comfort zones. And I talk about that all the time. There's a sweet spot in your business, and you've gotten certain points where it's like, oh, that's a sweet spot. And then you start pushing outside of that and going, okay, I need to hire somebody else. I need to grow my mindset. There's a lot of things go along with that. And you're absolutely right. It's not like it's fix it and go, right? Like we constantly have to keep on going back to the drawing board, consistently have to talk about where we are in our mind, because we will constantly tell ourselves stories and not allow ourselves to be the best we can be. And so you've absolutely grown your mindset. There's still things that will tear you, start to tear that mindset down if you don't continuously try to push in. And you're right, the loan business, right? Like, it's got stuff that hits you all the time. And you get triggered and you got to go, how can I respond and not react? How can I still run my day and not let it affect me? Why am I feeling this way? How can I dig in and say, okay, I'm still going to be successful. I'm still going to do my next call. I'm still going to give to my next relationship, even if I got a fire file right behind me. Because guess what? I'm not going to let it cost me the next deal and the next deal, because that's not fair to me. That's not fair to my family. It's not fair to my next client. And so we got to consistently push in, and you consistently push in, and you're consistently growing. And it's beautiful to see, because if you're out here too, let Dante be the person that's talking to you that gives you no excuse, right? Because Dante's only been in the business for a couple years. Dante came and doing, the first part of this year doing 3 or 4 loans a month, and now he's doing 15 and 17 loans consistently every month. And he had a 15 loan month last month, and he was like, that was horrible. I had a horrible month, 15 loans. So a lot of you out there are like, man, I'd love to have a 15 month, and I'd love for that to be horrible. Well, Dante was in the same boat as you in January and February and March and April when we were talking. I was talking to him and coaching him. It was 15 loans was like, holy crap, that's awesome. Now it's the standard has been reset. So let him talk to you directly on this podcast. Let it speak to you directly that you can do more. You can be more. You can grow and exponentially grow right now, and let him take away your excuses, because that's what you got. If you have a gap in your game, you got an excuse why you're not where you need to be. And you have to do things to get you there. So it may be the excuse that you're not going to hire somebody else because of this. You're not going to get somebody to coach you up because of this. You're not going to make the next call because of this. There's excuses upon excuses that are layering into not growing where you want to grow. So let Dante speak to you directly in this podcast and a shot right at you and say, hey, I've been doing this for 10 years and I'm not doing any more of that volume. Well, guess what? Dante, like he said, well, Adam, if you can do it, I can do it. Well, cool. I don't take any offense to that at all. It's growing. It's making sure that you continuously push in, and there's ways for you to grow your business today that you're not doing. So what's the excuse for you not to grow?
And it's going to take, I think the biggest thing too is it doesn't just immediately happen. It takes time as you get your head right and get your actions right. It's a delay, but I mean, it doesn't. 30 days, 60 days is not a big delay in the grand scheme of things. But you got to get those mentalities changed. And I mean, that's when I look at people in any industry, everyone, and I call Adam the Midwestern. I think that's what it was, the Midwestern Roger Bannister, because he raised the bar. And then after me, there was 2 or 3 other guys that came on board and doing 10, 12, 15 loans. It's not just I'm nothing special is the other piece. When people, we can all look at somebody else and be like, oh, there's something there. I don't have the insane smarts. I didn't graduate college. the first couple of years of this business, I didn't really have mentorship, and like there's so much that you could, everything that you want to give yourself an excuse for, I can promise you that it's gone. When you look at the people, there's so many more people out there, and the problem is we don't know their stories, and that's honestly the biggest thing is, until I met you and talked with you, I didn't know your story, and I didn't know. It would have been a heck of a lot easier had I not talked to you, to write you off and just say that you were doing, some awesome things and whatever, you had some special skill or whatever it was. But once we start to learn people's stories, that's one of the things that's awesome about podcasts like this is you hear my story and you realize this guy didn't do any, he didn't know anything better than me. He wasn't any, I guess I don't really have an excuse, and that's, right. That's fantastic. You, like Adam just said, use me too. I truly believe that there are so many more people out there could be growing. And, Adam and I have talked about why maybe some people not growing as much. And I think honestly, that mental game is one of the biggest pieces that we all have to get through. But if you do the mental game and you just listen to this podcast, but you don't change any actions, it's going to be painful eventually.
Yep.
It starts to hurt. And it's not even it hurts because you're wow, you just give yourself more excuses.
Yeah.
Because you start listening to all these good things, you listen to the right kind of mindset, but then you're not doing it. And so then you start to create this imbalance in your brain. And that's one of the big things too, is that I know there's a lot of people, and that's how I was for many years, is I didn't do the actions that followed up.
Yeah.
And mortgage industry more than anything just gave me the ability to do those actions in a way that was profitable. But if you're out there in any sales position and you're not doing the actions, but you're listening to a podcast like this, you got to stop and figure out how to get those actions going.
Yeah.
It'll hurt more. It took me 12 years to figure that out. It hurts way more as you're not doing the actions and you're hearing this kind of stuff, because it's possible.
Yeah,
there's no excuse.
It's 100% possible, right? You're living proof of that, and I think that the biggest thing is you talked about hey, different things you can do to grow your business. Listen, there's a lot of ways you can get in front of people, etc. But once you find some things, you just find something and hammer it and be consistent with it, and then maybe build upon that. But you're absolutely right. The mental game has to be there. It always has to be there, because if you're not really trying to create the vision and the why and just that ironclad will to win every single day, then when it gets tough and the file goes to hell in a handbasket, which they do sometimes, right? We do everything we can for them not to, but sometimes they do. People do stupid crap in loans, okay? All the time. We miss something, even if you make the mistake yourself. You have to have such a mental game and a will to win every single day that you're you know what? Cool. I've still got a prospect. I still got to go out there and serve, and I still got to grow, because it's so easy to retract. It's so easy to retract. And people retract all the time. Every single day, they don't even realize it, how much they're retracting. And it's well, I'll do that tomorrow. Or, oh man, this file's going wrong. And they're feeling guilt, right? That's one thing I wrote on the other day is guilt. So I asked people, I was well, why you haven't prospected really this last week? Why? Well, I had this file that was going wrong, okay? I'm and I get down to it, and I'm well, I feel guilty about making the next call and trying to market when one of these deals is going wrong. And I'm well, let me ask you something. When the deal closes, will you have gotten any better? Will your service level have gotten any better? And they're well, no. Well, then guess what? Then what are you doing right now? Doesn't matter. You're not going to get any better between now and a week when this thing closes, even if it's a dumpster file, right?
One of the things that I think,
keep on going.
One of the things I think a lot of loan officers do, and I did in sales anywhere, is you mentally you latch on. I had one that we didn't get closed until a couple hours before closing and all that. You just get stressed. And I would admonish anyone literally look back at the week and see what you actually did action wise, because I'll bet a pretty good chunk of money that you really just worried 90% of the time.
Right.
And like you said, because you're sitting there, you're worried about this file, and but on the flip side, you're missing everything else going on over here. And that was for me. There was so much, and this is one of the things I love too about one of your, the coaching of 22 loans in 38 hours is it's not, you don't have to put in all those kind of hours. most likely, maybe not. I know I am. I still have that. Like that one that was closed on Friday, I was still worrying, and I knew I wasn't doing what I should have been doing on Friday. But we all do that to the extent that, and that's a big portion of like, I went home Friday and I was exhausted, and I look back, I'm like, yeah, but I didn't do anything. Like,
right.
I worried.
right. You're gonna pull that file through to close by sheer will of like Jedi mind trick. Like, I'm gonna get it, and you're literally so correct because I've done. I don't know. You've probably seen numerous videos I've done about this. Like, it's like, how many hours a week are you stuck behind a computer just like waiting for the email or waiting for that to clear to close, and like you're just stuck and debilitated. And if you are, and you really just like, somebody needs to, if you are one of those people, I want you to like monitor that and write down how many hours you've wasted that week and that mental energy and all that stuff you've done. Like, think about how much you could do in that time and put it into something else. And what are you going to do for that not to continue to be the cycle? Because I can tell you, I'm not saying this because, I mean, like you said, nobody's special, right? You may not be special, but you're doing special things. I may not be special, but I'm doing special things because we're continuously trying to do special things. And so, like, I remember like just being bogged down the same way. Like, I didn't just come out of the womb like this and like, cool, I'm going to go to the next file. I don't care if stuff's falling apart. Like, it's still, like, I get triggered and I go, okay, think about it. Move on and stop getting so worried about it. And so I'm not saying once in a while I don't get caught up more than I should, but it's gotten so much better because I've continuously pushed that back and say, no, I cannot allow that to cost me money and cost me energy and guilt and all this other stuff that's associated with that piece of the pie. And if you're not willing to push through that, and that you're not really hitting that head on, as a loan officer, you will never get where you want to go. You will never do 20 loans a month, 30 loans a month, 40 loans. You will never do the loans that you're capable of if you don't take care of that, because you're always going to have a dumpster fire. It's going to happen. I don't care how much you do. Like, this loans, it's imperfect. Everybody can shove the stuff on. Oh man, I close this soon. Everything else. The big thing about not putting that online, or when you do put that online, right? You ever done that? It's like, close this one in 3 weeks, and then you have like 5 other people like, hey, is my loan clear to close? And, no. Let me delete this post because, yours is 48 days in. I haven't closed it, right? Like, right? So it's a highlight reel that we all look for, and we're like, okay, well, he's closing all these loans, and there's nothing that's going wrong. And I talk to clients all the time, or consultations. They're like, well, man, I've got these loans going bad, and they're doing 5 loans a month. And I'm like, do you not think that when I'm closing 20 and 25 loans a month, I got, 15 contracts this last week, right? Like, some of those are not going to go perfect, right? It's just part of it. Right off the bat, you get documents in, you're like, oh gosh, this is going to be, all right, that's, okay, what are we going to do about it? Because this is a USDA rural housing loan. They got 42 things in here in their bank statements that is like, what the heck, right? So we're always going to have issues. It's just how we handle them, how we don't get triggered. Before we go, real quick, if you could name 3 top things this year that's helped you grow your business, what are those?
The biggest one is the mental change, the ability to see myself in that role. It'd be the big number one. Actions, number 2, is just 10% more, just that extra little bit every day. I think one more phone call at night, that type of attitude. And 3, the biggest change between mental capacity and actions is just the belief. Like, I know I can do it.
Yeah.
And a year ago, like, you guys got to remember, 2 years ago, I wasn't even in this, like 2.5 years ago, I wasn't even in this industry.
Yep.
I didn't even know mortgages from the next guy.
Yep.
So now I know I can be in the top 1% without a question.
Yep.
Because of the belief. And that's not something that you're going to get day one, but as you get those steps going, there's no question. So getting the belief, getting the mind right, and getting those actions in place.
Absolutely. Well, Dante, it is a pleasure to continue this journey with you. I'm so pumped that you're on this. It's a true honor to to just, be associated with you. And man, I just look forward to seeing the growth. I mean, 2 years from now, like, good Lord, it's going to be a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing now, but man, I just look for this journey, and continuing on.
Absolutely. Can't wait to be on there with you.
Absolutely. Well, guys, remember, check out hirescoaching.com. Go on there, download your free business transformation playbook today. Hit me up for a consultation. But remember, guys, just go out there. There you go. Powerful playbook for my coaching clients. You've been filling that out, brother? Oh, there you go. He's got it. Boom. There you go. He is. Listen, hey, you can't ever say that I'm gonna help somebody grow from 3 or 4 loans a month to 17 loans a month in a quick time as Dante. But if you have those other tools in place that he's talking about, and you're driven, you're ready. Listen, you can get to there. So, all right. So, just guys, keep remembering this. Just like Dante said, limited risks equals limited income.